What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. I just want to let you know this is my third time attempting to record this today without being rudely interrupted by the NBA, because that's what it seems like is going on recently, is that the NBA wants to become the most interesting thing in the world, like it always is, and interrupt my podcast. This is your Sports Digest. I'm your host, Alex McNinch, back again with another episode. And, well, it's been an eventful week, and it's going to be a very eventful weekend and week ahead. We're going to cover a lot of these different things that are happening, a lot of stuff in the NBA. That's what we're going to hit on primarily today because the NBA free agency opens up. Teams are allowed to negotiate tonight, I believe at 5 p.m. Central Time is when they are allowed to start, maybe 5 p.m. Eastern Time, somewhere around there. Once the league office closes, that is when they will be able to start negotiating. AKA, they've been negotiating for weeks now and are able to start signing contracts tomorrow. Things won't be official until, I believe, the end of tomorrow, going into July 1st or maybe July 7th. It's one of those two dates where the official start happens to where all the things are negotiated with and processed through. But a lot of stuff on the NBA front. Players going different directions that no one could have saw coming. And then we got a lot of stuff to talk about with other sports, and we're going to introduce a new segment. As you could tell, obviously, big segment show, big block schedule, A block, C block, D block, whatever you call it. I am a big show that goes in order, if you obviously have listened so far. If you're new, welcome in. I know some people might be finding me from TikTok. I appreciate you guys. If that is the case, follow me on all your socials at Your Sports Digest. Go to yoursportsdigest.com. I have a free agency tracker there where you'll be keeping up with all of the signings and trades and stuff like that that'll happen to all the free agents this upcoming week. But we're going to introduce a new segment. It's going to be called Quick Hits. We're just going to literally just go over everything that happens in these other sports really quickly so that, we're able to tap into the different markets and different people's interests so that we're not missing out on anything. Obviously, if you see the title of the episodes, they designate one thing that we're going to talk about primarily. So I want to be able to touch other fan bases that are maybe not NBA fans, especially for this episode, or may not be big football fans, so we could touch on other stuff that happen in other sports when the time comes. But let's just get right into quick hits. And number one big thing that happened on Monday night, we talked about it a lot last episode going into Game 3, but the LSU Tigers ended up winning the College World Series in an absolute blowout of a game in Game 3, the deciding game. Jack Caglione was on the mound for Florida, and he was terrible. Florida started out early. I think they went up 2-0 in the first inning. And then LSU responded with like a 9-run second inning or something like that, or 6 runs. 9's too much. 6-run second inning. LSU ended up winning 18-4. Kind of makes up for that Saturday 24-4 loss that they took. Paul Skeens, you would think he's Jesus Christ himself with how much they showed him on TV, but I mean, all props to him. He is very, very good, but he wasn't pitching for half the game yet. That's all they focused on. Kind of sucked to see the no coverage of other teams and other players, but it's fine. He's worth it. Congratulations to LSU. Obviously, if you know me, I am a Florida fan. I'm a diehard Gator for life, even though I don't go to school there. Does this hurt me, this loss? Not necessarily, because I care about my school more in baseball, because that's the only thing we're really good at the current moment. So maybe if it was a closer game, like Game 1 was, where it was an 11-inning loss, if it was an extra innings game or came down to the last inning for Game 3 and we lost, maybe it would have been a little bit more heartbreaking, but there was enough time for me to be able to turn the channel to the NHL awards and watch that instead of watching the last 4 innings of the baseball game. So congratulations to LSU. Congratulations to all them. Dylan Cruz and Paul Skeens, now national champions, and will be picked number 1 and 2 overall in the draft in a week. So going to be a great couple weeks here for those two guys. I already see Dylan Cruz is working at Canes down there, so I'm sure he's having the time of his life. But congratulations to LSU once again. Moving on to 2, we're going to stay in the baseball world because on Wednesday night, Domingo Germán of the New York Yankees threw a perfect game against the Oakland Athletics. And if you don't know what a perfect game is, I'm sure you do if you're listening to this, but if you don't know, basically that's no walks, no hits, no reached on errors, nothing. 27 batters up, 27 of them sitting down throughout the game. Very impressive. First time since 2012 when Felix Hernandez of the Seattle Mariners threw a perfect game that a perfect game was thrown in the MLB. Unfortunately, it couldn't happen to a worse person in the world of Domingo Germán. Obviously, as a baseball fan, it is so cool to see a perfect game pitch because it's very rare. Like, I'm watching the Red Sox game right now. They're now losing 2-0 in the ninth. But Brian Bayo, our young ace for the Red Sox, just had a no-hitter going into the eighth inning. Like, those are a little bit more common to see. But a perfect game is incredible. I think the closest one we've had recently was Max Scherzer went into the last pitch of the game with a perfect game. And the guy who was up to that for Pittsburgh leaned into it and got hit and forced himself on base, broke up the perfect game. Big controversy. That was like the most recent one, I believe. But obviously, cool to see that happen. And I'm very glad that Domingo Germán is finally able to not allow hitting in his life. If you don't know what I mean, just look it up. Trust me. You'll see why he's not deserving of this. But cool for the MLB to have that kind of traction. Unfortunately, not the guy you want to market so much. In Domingo Germán, but cool to see nonetheless. Number 3, in the NFL, some suspensions have been finally handed out due to gambling violations. We already had talked about it, I think, a little bit ago, about Isaiah Rodgers of the Colts corner being accused of gambling on the NFL. He released a statement weeks and weeks ago about it, and it came out today. That it would be Isaiah Rodgers and Rashad Berry, both on my new favorite NFL team because of Anthony Richardson, Indianapolis Colts. Both of them were suspended indefinitely, basically for the year until they can reapply for reinstatement, like Calvin Ridley did from the Falcons, now on the Jaguars. But they're done for the year. The Colts released both of those guys, and then Nicholas Petit-Frere, he's an offensive tackle for the Titans out of Ohio State. He's suspended 6 games for not betting on the NFL, but doing it at the team facility or workplace, whatever they want to call it. And quick thing to talk about there, I don't get that. In a league where you are promoting gambling, you are in partnership with FanDuel, PointBet, DraftKings, BetMGM, Caesars Sportsbook, all these different places. You are in full partnership. There are signs, billboards, flags everywhere around stadiums because of the partnerships. Not allowing these guys to bet on certain games that don't involve the NFL because they're in the parking lot of their team facility. Like Jamison Williams of the Detroit Lions got suspended earlier this year for 6 games because he bet on a college basketball game in the parking lot of the team facility. Like, that is ridiculous. I get it. Gambling at the workplace, maybe not the greatest thing. But, again, if you're promoting these different types of sports books and sports and mobile gambling within your league, as long as they're not betting on the NFL, I can understand. I can understand the college aspect because there's connections still, and maybe there's inside information there as well. I kind of get that a little bit. But overall, there's no need for that to even be a thing. You should not allow... you should allow these guys to do that and do away with the idea whether they're in the parking lot of their team facility or not. Who cares? If they want to bet on who wins the home run derby and they get suspended for it, that's just kind of crap in my mind. But that's just my opinion. Obviously, everybody else has a different take on it. But for me, I think in a league where you're really promoting all this stuff, I don't know. I don't know how you can really justify suspending these guys for betting on other sports just because they're in the team hotel. Like, come on, that's ridiculous. Obviously, Isaiah Rodgers, completely different thing. He bet on the over/under of rushing yards for his running backs. That's directly correlated to knowing what the team game plan is that week. So obviously, there's a there's a correlation there that definitely and understandably should have been suspended, fined, whatever the case would have been there. Number 4, the NHL draft. I thought it was in July. It's normally in the beginning of the beginning of July, but they moved it up, I think, this year, and it's to not conflict with all the other stuff going on. But we've talked about this guy when talking about the NHL and young guys. Connor Bedard finally got drafted to the Chicago Blackhawks. He is wearing 98, the first person in franchise history to wear number 98. He's going to be an absolute stud. 17-year-old out of Canada. He's the next big thing. It's crazy to see that in a year we get Victor Wembanyama in the NBA being the generational talent. Same thing happens in the NHL where we get this 17-year-old phenom who's going to start on the first line for the Blackhawks this next year, I would assume. I don't think they would send him down. If Slavkovsky last year was picked number 1 for the Canadians and he started on like the third line, Bedard's easily a first-line guy. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be. Other stuff to talk about during the draft, not really much that the general fan bases would understand. Defensemen really flying off the board early. I know the Kraken, they're my hockey team. I know we were in the ballpark looking for some defensemen at 20. All of them were gone. A guy we were projected to get at 20 went, I think, like 8. So defensemen were flying off the board, and for the first time since last year, a goaltender was not picked in the first round. But that's it for the NHL. There's not much else to really talk about in the NHL. There's been some trades, but nothing really too major. I think I guess Kevin Hayes for some draft picks for the Blues is big, but Kevin Hayes is like making way too much money for what he should be deserved in the media landscape with all that. But that's it for the NHL draft. And that's kind of it. That's quick hits. We're going to start trying to do this a lot to be able to kind of catch up with everything in these other sports. But now is the time to talk about the meat and potatoes of everything. And that is the NBA, because who doesn't want to talk about drama? And the NBA is filled with drama. It is a whole sitcom on its own. It might as well get put on like TLC or something for how much ridiculousness. I guess that's MTV. No copyright, no trademark. How much ridiculousness happens within the league. Just today alone, I'm recording this on Thursday night. As I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I have tried recording this 3 times today. And the first time I attempted to record this was earlier this afternoon, and I get a Twitter notification on my phone from Shams Charania of The Athletic, and then immediately after, Adrian Wojnarowski from ESPN, both saying that James Harden is opting into his player option for $35.6 million and will seek a trade helping with the 76ers looking for one to get out of Philadelphia. Obviously, Doc Rivers no longer there. Nick Nurse, the new head coach, coming in to Philly. Looks like James Harden is on his way out. I know there's a lot of speculation that he was probably gone and he could have gone to Houston, but it's looking like now he's opting into that player option and is getting shipped somewhere else. And I texted somebody immediately upon this happening because there's been rumors all over about Paul George potentially getting traded. And as soon as I saw this, I sent this to my buddy and I was like, this is where Paul George gets traded. It's a James Harden for Paul George swap, no doubt in my mind. And then literally like 10 minutes later, Woj tweeted out, the Clippers and Knicks are expected to be among the teams that'll engage. Like, am I an NBA analyst? Am I an insider in the NBA? Stay tuned to find out, because I might be predicting some really good things here later on with these other free agents. But this would be the most sense made with this trade. The Knicks, I don't see them wanting to give up any of their young players to be able to get Harden, nor swapping Julius Randle and James Harden makes either team better. It kind of decreases both teams, honestly. So I I don't see him going to the Knicks at all. The Suns was one of the teams lobbied out to get him. We'll get to the Suns in a second because they're trying to do something that's ridiculously stupid. But if Harden goes to the Suns, that wouldn't make any sense either. I see the Clippers making the most sense. Kawhi can play the 3 or the 4. You're getting rid of Paul George, which now he can go to Philly and really be that on-ball scorer that we saw a lot happening in Oklahoma City, and injuries caught up to him here in Los Angeles. But I know that Tobias Harris is there. Paul George has played the 2 plenty of times in his career. Will continue to play the 2, could slide down to the 3. Tobias Harris could get on the move. There's a lot of different things. I like the Clippers to be the team to get James Harden here in a potential swap for Paul George. And then I was like, all right, maybe this has all died down a little bit. Let's go ahead and hop in another trade. I was waiting into another recording session. Red Sox are about to lose the game, so I was like, all right, whatever, we'll hop on. And then the one guy that I was going to base my whole Grizzly talk around tonight as a sneaky guy to get signs a 3-year, $54 million extension with the Sacramento Kings and Harrison Barnes. And I was like, oh, that's great. I was literally in the middle of my intro, had about 45 seconds into the podcast, and saw that happened. But Woj tweeted that Harrison Barnes signed a 3-year, $54 million contract extension to stay with Sacramento. That's about 18 per year. That's a little bit more than I expected him to get. I thought his market was going to be kind of low, and he was going to be around 15. But this also means that Sacramento is eliminated now from probably going and getting Kyle Kuzma. This probably takes us out of the way. There's a lot of traction about Kuzma going to Sacramento. I don't know necessarily the cap space. I'd have to figure that out. But I think that this kind of takes them out of that running. Kuzma looking for like $20 million. So if this is kind of the case that is happening, I mean, Kuzma to the Kings is probably dead. Yeah, they are nowhere in any way able to make this happen. They can offer on the mid-level exception, but I guarantee you Kuzma's not going for $12 million. And if he is, then I don't know why Memphis didn't try for him if he's going to Sacramento then. But, Harrison Barnes signs that extension. Outside of the playoff series against the Warriors this last year that everybody made fun of him for breaking like 3 shots in the final minutes of game 5 or 6 or something like that. He's a good player, 3-and-D guy, shoots like 37+% from 3, plays solid enough defense as a 31-year-old guy. They locked him down for 3 years. Seemed like that locker room really likes him as a vet. Not a guy who's going to, be the head talking guy, but a lead by example type of person. So keeping him in Sacramento is a good idea. If you're Vlade, I don't even know if Vlade Divac is still the general manager or president of the team anymore, but if you're the Kings, it's a great move to kind of lock down another one of those vet presence while you continue to try to add more in free agency. So all those things happen, and now we're here. We're now in the NBA. A couple other things to talk about that had happened throughout this week. Nikola Vucevic of the Chicago Bulls signed a 3-year, $60 million extension, fully guaranteed to remain with the Chicago Bulls. That makes no sense to me on why the Bulls would want to keep him around. I thought a sign-in trade would happen with him to be able to get some more assets. But now you're at this kind of floating mediocrity level to where you got LaVine. He's probably going to get traded here in the next year or two. DeMar DeRozan, whose contract comes up, I think, in the next year or two, so he's going to get traded. Now you get fully guaranteed Vucevic, who's into his mid-30s now, getting paid $60 million for the next 3 years, fully guaranteed. It's like, all right, now what? You don't have any draft capital because you traded it all for Vucevic, so you didn't have a first-round pick this year. You got to try to pay Kobe White this offseason. Lonzo Ball's career might be over. We don't know. Like, there's so many questions when it comes to the Chicago Bulls organization. And it's not the players' fault. It's just kind of the direction that they're going in. Granted, you traded all your picks, so you're kind of in this weird, I don't know, like middle float area. And obviously with the talent you had, like 2 years ago should have been your time to really make a push. Injuries happen, but you should have known that with the 3 guys that were your top 3, right? DeMar's going to get injured. LaVine's going to get injured. Vucevic had some injury issues throughout his time in Orlando. So, I don't know. You're kind of in a weird spot there with Chicago. I could start to see them unloading assets at the trade deadline this next year, if not some of them this offseason. Other people who have declined or exercised their options, Jordan Clarkson exercised his player option for $14.3 million. That was reported by Sarah Todd of I can't remember the exact journal, but it's in Salt Lake City. So, and it was confirmed by other people as well. She had it first. Josh Hart exercised his $13 million player option. That was reported by Woj here just a little bit ago, right before the Harrison Barnes one happened. We'll get to the Knicks here in a little bit. What else do we have? Taylor Horton Tucker exercised his $11 million player option. Alec Burks picked up the team option of $10 million to stay with Detroit. Victor Oladipo exercised his player option. Rudy Gay. Oh, I don't remember if did we talk about the John Collins trade? I can't remember what day that happened. That might have happened on Monday. It seems this week has been so long that I can't even tell you like what day some of these things happen anymore. I think that John Collins trade happened Monday or Tuesday. Yeah. Okay. Well, John Collins. Hey, everybody. How you doing? John Collins got traded to the Utah Jazz for Rudy Gay and a second-round pick. This is obviously a cap space move by Atlanta. You now opened up this $28 million trade exception that you're allowed to transfer contracts or trade for other guys and slide their contract in to that trade exception to not take it away from the total overall luxury tax and cap that you have to do. They still have the $12 million mid-level exception and the biannual exception at $4 million, so they can still go add pieces. Again, this is just a contract dump for Atlanta. Rumors that there could be Dylan Brooks on their mind to try to go get. There was also rumors about Pascal Siakam being in a trade. There's a lot of things that Atlanta needs to do. And we'll talk about Atlanta here in a little bit more. And then on Utah's side, getting John Collins, I think they've targeted him here in the years past when Collins' value is a little bit more. But now you're just building the ultimate big lineup to try to beat every other small ball team. I don't know how they're going to make this work. I thought that Taylor Hendricks was going to end up starting his rookie year, but there's a chance where he might not. I don't know what their plan is. Again, they still have like the third most money in free agency to spend. Probably lower than that now, but they had a lot of money to spend in free agency, obviously using on John Collins here, but now you're looking at a territory where is Laurie going to play the 3 or even the 2 at this point and just have this massive lineup? It'd be fun to see what happens in that aspect of there. But I think it's a win-win for both sides. Unfortunately, if you're Atlanta, you could have gotten a lot more for him earlier on in his career when his value was higher. And for Utah's sake, you capitalize because now his value is as low as can be. And you just traded Rudy Gay and a second-round pick for him. Like, who really cares? I don't even care for Rudy Gay anyways. I'm a diehard Grizzly fan. Screw him. Anyways, moving on to the last couple things. Cam Reddish will not get his contract or like an offer sheet from Portland, so he becomes an unrestricted free agent. I can see teams doing that and making that a priority. He might sign for a little bit less to kind of like a prove-it deal. I could see him doing that. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, similar situation. Minnesota not taking on his whatever his restricted free agency makes him an unrestricted free agent. Another guy that is showing improvements every year could get a prove-me deal with a contender team and eventually get paid next year or whatever. Taurean Prince of the Minnesota Timberwolves does not have his contract guaranteed for $7.4 million, so he will become an unrestricted free agent. He found out because Woj said it on Twitter. That sucks. I can only imagine how much that sucks, like not being told by your agent or your team at all, and you open up Twitter and Woj is like, oh yeah, by the way, you're getting cut. And it's just like, oh, all right, cool. Sweet. Thanks, Woj. I appreciate you letting me know before the Alex Rodriguez does. I don't know. Alex Rodriguez doesn't have anything to do with it, but screw Alex Rodriguez too. It's a screw everybody podcast. Eric Gordon doesn't get his $20 million guaranteed. That was the most obvious thing that could happen. He had $20 million, none of it guaranteed. The Clippers said, yep, we'll get you out of here. I'm not paying you $20 million to not play any defense for us. So welcome to the Grizzlies, it looks like, Eric Gordon. No, Eric Gordon, very solid three-point shooter, great vet. Not the greatest defender, but can knock down the three at the high level. And again, very good vet to have in the locker room. Eric Gordon, unrestricted free agent. Mo Bamba, yes, just like the song, a guy that we were told draft night is like a hybrid Anthony Davis. Now unrestricted, the Lakers are releasing him. His contract is not guaranteed this year for $10 million. So the Lakers sending him to unrestricted free agency. And just a little bit on the Lakers front right there. Congratulations to Rob Pelinka being a complete idiot and trading Taylor, or not wanting to trade Taylor Horton Tucker in any of your trades, whether it was for Kyle Lowry, Chris Paul, any of these trades. You did not make Taylor Horton Tucker available because he had 10 good games. And then in the offseason, you prioritized him over Alex Caruso, who everyone knows Alex Caruso, the better player for the team in that fit. And then you're like, okay, now we feel bad. Taylor Horton Tucker's not that good, actually. He's a solid player, but in the aspect of where they were looking at him to be in the level of play they expected from him, he's not there. So we'll trade you to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Pat Bev. And then Pat Bev turns out to not be good at basketball on the offensive end, which you kind of need. But we all knew that, but the Lakers didn't. So they traded Pat Bev to the Magic for Mo Bamba. Mo Bamba now released. So now you just got rid of Taylor Horton Tucker, who was your most valuable trade asset a long time ago, where you could have had one of these good veteran point guards, maybe made a little bit more of a push. But obviously you opt not to go with that. That's why you're in the front office and I'm not, because you obviously are making much smarter decisions than I ever could. That's it on the Lakers, and I'll stop making fun of the Lakers. But someone who was rumored to go to the Lakers for a long time and is not, Kyrie Irving is now going to be fielding multiple visits with Dallas, Phoenix, Houston, other teams such as those. That'll be interesting. I think he stays in Dallas, but the Phoenix one is very, very confusing. Why they would even want him. The KD and Kyrie thing didn't work the first time. Now you got Devin Booker and KD. Now you got Bradley Beal and Devin Booker and KD. So you're going to sign and trade, Kyrie Irving for your center? Who's going to play center? You're going to sign like freaking, I don't know, Mason Plumlee's going to play center for you guys? Then what do you got on the bench? Nothing. That'd be a dumb move if you're Phoenix. If Phoenix really cares about winning, they would not get Kyrie Irving. They would go sign some of these other guys for minimum contracts like Eric Gordon. But you know what? Watch them go do this with Kyrie Irving and sign him and trade DeAndre Ayton over to the Mavericks and put them in a better spot than Phoenix is. But only time will tell with any of that stuff. And but again, free agency, this is a fun time. It starts tonight if you're listening to this on Friday. If you're not, you probably already know all these moves that have happened, if any have happened. Very interesting stuff to keep track of. On TikTok, I posted my top 10 free agents and their destinations, where I thought that they would end up going. I'll kind of go over some of them. I had D'Angelo Russell. I had him remaining with the Lakers. I think that something came out earlier this week saying they want to remain with the same core. So they could potentially be in the case where it's like, hey, D'Lo, come on back. I know there were some rumors with him. He was doing a workout in Toronto, not with the Raptors, but just playing like pickup in Toronto. Like, who cares? None of that ever means anything anyways. I also had Brook Lopez. I had him going to the Rockets, and the Rockets currently are at a weird spot where they have a lot of money to kind of to play with. Then they got $63 million. They're already linked to two other free agents, one of them being Dylan Brooks, the other one we'll talk about in a second. And you can kind of look at Dylan Brooks is going to be in around the $15 million range. The other guy that they're going to sign that I'm not going to tease yet, but they're looking at him in the high 20s range. So now you're working with, hey, will Brook Lopez take this in the high teens, low $20 million range and pry him away from Milwaukee? I think he ends up going back to Milwaukee. Even though I said the Rockets, the more I think about it, I think Brook might opt to go with a current contention over playing for a younger team or a more questionable team. He is getting into his upper 30s. Granted, Defensive Player of the Year candidate last year and the year prior, I believe. Can still hit the three at a very high rate. Like, he's a very valuable player. But if you're Houston, if you're smart, as valuable as he can be, you also got to realize your window is not there yet. So do you want to throw a 2 or 3 year contract at a guy who's like 35 and could regress any minute now and be a waste of your contract and nobody want to trade for him? So that's something you want to look out for if you're Houston, because you got other guys that you could target and become more valuable. Next guy I have is Kyle Kuzma, and I have the Detroit Pistons being the team that signs Kyle Kuzma. They also have one of the top cap spaces going into tomorrow's free agency, or tonight, whenever you're listening to this, into the free agency period. The Pistons, they went a different direction in the draft than I thought they would at forward. They ended up going with guard and getting Asar Thompson, one of the Thompson twins from Overtime Elite. So now you got 3 guards. Asar can play small forward. He's 6'6", I believe, 6'6", 6'7". So he can play small forward if you need him to. He's got the defense to be able to. But with that being said, will he start immediately? Will he come off the bench and be the 6th man? Kuzma can start at the 3. He can start at the 4. He can rebound really well, play good defense. He'll take a bunch of shots for you. You need a wing, a true wing. You need a true guy that can play on the wing and knock down shots when it's passed to him. And I think with the cap space, you're going to want to overpay a little bit to get a guy that you want. Kuzma being around from Michigan, I believe, around that area maybe. Go ahead and bring him semi back home. Going to Detroit, I think that would be a great move for Detroit to go get a wing like Kyle Kuzma. Next guy I have is Jeremy Grant. And this is going to be a weird one because Dame said that he wants Jeremy Grant to return back to Portland. I think he returns back to Portland. With that being said, if Dame asks out, I could see Jeremy Grant's value in the market drop down a little bit. Some of these other teams with just the mid-level exception might be like, hey, you want to come over here, sign for the mid-level exception, and we can contend right now? And he might want to do it a la Memphis, right? That would be an ideal guy I'd like for sure. At $12 million, I think Jeremy Grant would be a steal. I think he's going to go around 20. But if you're going back to Portland, you're going to have to take a pay cut anyways. If you go to another team, depending on where you go, you're going to have to take a pay cut anyways. Unless you're going to like the Detroit. Yeah, I don't think he's going to go back to Detroit. But if you're going to like Utah or something like that, you have to take a pay cut anyways. So I think he goes back to the Blazers if Dame stays. Otherwise, I could see one of these other contenders trying to swoop in and get him. Vucevic, we already talked about him. Draymond Green, I'm just going back to the Warriors. I think everybody's in agreement now saying that Draymond's just signing back on a smaller contract to be able to have cap flexibility. That makes the most sense. Chris Middleton, have him return to the Bucks. Again, another situation like Draymond, opting out of the player option for cap reasons, signing for a cheaper contract so that they can have a little bit more flexibility under the luxury tax. Number 3, Fred VanVleet. This is the guy I've been teasing about with the Rockets. I think he signs with Houston. All signs point towards it. He would be the perfect guy for Ime Udoka. Ime would love having Fred VanVleet on the team. And he's a veteran point guard. You've been starting Kevin Porter Jr., who's younger. A lot of people consider him a hothead. I'm not saying it. I'm just saying allegedly. People are calling him a hothead. There are multiple instances where, there have been activities that have made it questionable. So I think if you get another veteran like Fred VanVleet on the roster, he's going to go for the high 20s per year. Houston is the preferred destination, it looks like, if he's not going back to Toronto. So look for the Houston Rockets to swoop in and get Fred VanVleet immediately upon free agency opening tomorrow night. Kyrie Irving, we talked about it with Dallas, and then James Harden was my original one with the Sixers, but now that is completely scrapped. So we'll just go ahead and run down some of the list. I have some guys in mind when looking at this that we need to talk about that could be a little sleeper type of guys for teams. One of them being Christian Wood, and a guy who is a almost 20 point per game scorer with Houston and Detroit. Did not really figure it out with Dallas. Was, not the most aggressive big man of all time, but he's going to be one of those prove it deal guys that are going to sign for like $5 or $6 million. And it's like, oh, okay. Kind of like DiVincenzo last year. It's like, oh, okay. He signed for that much and he's going to this team. Oh, okay. That's great. Glad to see that they got him on this type of deal. I think Christian Wood's going to be in that category of people. Another dude to look out that could be in that to look out for that be in that type of category is Karis LeVert. Now, obviously, when the Cavs had an idea of trading for Karis LeVert, it was like, hey, we need this guy that can play the wing. Now, Karis LeVert, very known for his injury issues, right? Inefficiencies at times when he gets injured, he becomes inefficient. Now, LeVert is one of those guys that if you sign him for the right contract, mid-level exception area, he could be a real value player for your team. Another guy that I could definitely see Memphis kind of being like, hey, we don't have this spark plug off the bench. Sure, we have Luke Kennard, but Luke Kennard is going to be running off screens, catch and shoot, right? Karis LeVert can roll with the ball in his hands. He's like a obviously not comparing him, saying that he is Lou Will or Jamal Crawford, but in the aspect of they can come off the bench and change the game for you as a 12-point-a-game player or whatnot. And especially now with no Tyus Jones being one of those point getters off the bench, Karis LeVert could be a guy. Again, the defense is questionable at times, and the injury history obviously is something to look at with that. But for any other team that is looking to get him mid-level exception area, he'd be a perfect guy, honestly. Obviously, everybody wants to know where's Dylan Brooks going. He's not coming to Memphis. That's all I need to know, and that's all that matters to me. Looks like he's going to Houston. I'd say $15 million range is about the range he's probably going to get. I know there was something saying he wanted 20. That's not happening. He's smoking. I also want $20 million, but obviously that's just not going in the same way as his would be. Teams want him for the mid-level exception at 12.4. I think he signs for 15 with Houston. Houston goes and gets that defensive guy that puts all those guys in line. Another dude to note on, Grant Williams. He's a restricted free agent. Boston would not mind losing him, it sounds like. And for a team that is trying to build around the guard position now, trying to trade Brogdon still. They like Derek White a lot. You traded Marcus Smart to Memphis. What can you get in free agency to exchange for maybe Grant Williams, where a sign-and trade could happen for Grant Williams? Now, I think he would be great for the Grizzlies because coming off the bench as a wing, even if you want to start him at times, him and Marcus Smart have very good chemistry defensively. Doesn't seem like there's any issue with them too. Personality-wise, the only thing with Grant Williams that's an issue is that he went to the University of Tennessee, and that's not even an issue too much to me because for fan purposes, if you want to get your fans invested and happy about acquisitions, get guys that you can connect with. And a lot of Grizzly fans, being Tennessee Volunteer fans, love Grant Williams. And putting the Tennessee stuff aside, I love Grant Williams' game. Sure, he's 6'6", but he plays bigger than his size, similar to Marcus Smart. Plays a lot bigger than his 6'3", 6'4" self. He's like a 6'8" wingspan. Another guy just plays bigger than his size, shoots 38+% from three, loves the corner. Another guy. It'd probably be a sign-and-trade. I don't see Memphis wanting to do a sign-and-trade with Boston on that. Maybe. I have this theory that the reason we gave them 2 first-round picks in that trade with Porzingis and Marcus Smart is to help make up for this Grant Williams sign and trade that's about to happen. Book it here. You heard it here first if that ends up happening here pretty soon. A couple other guys to kind of note that I think are going to go under the radar a little bit more, but command a little bit more money, may not sign for much, but you're going to look again in a year and be like, oh, he just got paid that much for doing this. Dante DiVincenzo, he's going to get paid a little bit more. I'll tell you right now, I think he's going to the Knicks. I think he's going to reunite with Brunson and Josh Hart to do the Villanova connection again. Book that one in for me. I like DiVincenzo going to the Knicks. Bruce Brown, obviously there's a lot of talk with him in the Lakers right now, the Mavericks. Denver, I think he ends up going back to Denver, but wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers want to overpay for him, which means that a guy like Rui Hachimura might not be coming back to the Lakers. The other guys that I think you can look at and be like, oh, he signed here. Kelly Oubre. He's going to shoot the ball a lot. Very good in deflections on the defensive end. Not going to stay in front of guys, but he's going to shoot the ball a lot. That's all you need to know about him. Matisse Thybulle, he's a restricted free agent. Starting to shoot better from three a little bit. But his defensive purpose on the team, or on a team, would be the most exciting to look at. Terrence Davis from Sacramento, I don't think they bring him back. I think he would be a great fit for any team in the NBA. Very good shooter, explosively athletic, solid defensive guy. Another dude to look out for if you are looking for a guy who's going to come in on a cheaper contract. Torrey Craig can help out any team in the NBA. I'd like him for Memphis as well. Another 3-and-D dude, a vet, likes to get rebounds. Again, locker room presence. Think he's a guy like that. Javon Carter from Milwaukee, former Grizzly guard, lockdown defensively guard. He's undersized. His head's like a milk dud, but he's going to put you in a concentration camp offensively, and you won't be doing anything. Trey Lyles, another dude, also former Sacramento King, could go back to the Kings. Shoots incredibly well from three. Think he's going to be a very, very, very good acquisition for any team. He's been around the block a little bit, starting to really come into his own. Think he's going to be a great addition for whoever signs him. And then I guess the last guy we can kind of talk about is Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think, and Cam Reddish. We'll put them both in the same category because we just talked about them. Two young guys, really haven't proven anything, but want to land in a spot where they can prove something. And they go on like the prove it deals, sign for whatever low contract, and then boom, have a great year, and then sign somewhere else in free agency the next year. But there's a lot of free agents. There's going to be even more trades. So keep in mind that there's not going to be as many trades, I don't think, unless it's sign-in trades here in the next couple of days. When they go to Summer League next weekend, that's when GMs are going to meet with each other and do the outlines of these trades and stuff like that they might want to do. So next weekend, look for a lot more trades. Look for a lot of smokescreen here this next week. A lot of free agents to come in tomorrow night when the negotiation period opens up. Get ready for an overflow of people signing. And then at the middle of next week, the next wave of people signing will happen as well. NBA free agency and offseason is the most exciting stuff because everyone knows that in the NBA, everything that doesn't involve basketball is what makes the NBA the NBA, and we all love it for that. So just keep your eye out. Keep those Twitter notifications on. Hope your team gets who they want, unless you're a rival team with the Grizzlies. Then screw you, and I hope you don't get anybody worth a crap on your team, and you guys all complain about not getting anybody, and we just look better out of it. But that's the selfish fan in me. So NBA free agency opening up Friday once again. If you go to yoursportsdigest.com, I will have the free agency tracker live updating throughout the entire night. I'm probably not going to sleep tomorrow night. There's a very good chance I will be drinking tomorrow night. Should keep myself to not sleep. So we'll figure that out when we cross that path. But anything crazy happens, if you know me personally, send me something. If you're a listener of the show, DM me. Send me a message wherever you can find me at Your Sports Digest on all social medias. Go ahead and give a good like and rating on everywhere you listen to. Subscribe if you're on YouTube, Spotify. Follow, download everything. Follow all the socials. Go to check out the website. You can make fun of my mock draft that I put out a day before the actual draft, and all of it was wrong. You can make fun of me for that. I don't care. It's all fun. But we got NBA basketball, sort of, starting on Monday. We'll talk about that more on Sunday, or I guess on Monday morning when we put out the next episode. We'll talk about all the free agencies and the big rumors that happened over the weekend when I see you guys again. But until then, I'm Alex McNinch. You just got your Sports Digest.